So we are stood in a cowshed just outside Armoy, Northern Ireland, and we're here to have a look at Michael Dunlop's Hawk Honda TT winning Superbike that he's also going to be racing here at Armoy at the Race of Legends. And so the Hawk boys have given me good access to the bike so we can look at plenty of details, but they are a little bit shy on talking. So obviously it starts off as a Honda CBR 1000 RR, probably not even an SP, because of course you're going to take all the SP bits off. And then they add all the Superbike bits that Michael needs to go and win the TT. So we've got, starting at the front, OZ wheels, which are obviously quite a bit lighter than the standard wheels. Öhlins RVP 25 forks, so these have got all the skeletonized bottoms, and this is dual purpose because all this machining removes quite a lot of weight, but it also adds a little bit of flex, so it adds feel, especially when you're right on the side of the tyre, so you get a little bit of movement in the fork bottom. Obviously the Brembo, I'm not actually quite sure the spec version of the calipers, but they are the latest and greatest Superbike spec lithium calipers, biting onto Moto Master discs, which are interestingly cheaper than the Brembos and better. Obviously big engines, or big CC engines, require a lot of cooling, so we've got big oil cooler and big water radiator. Obviously braided brake hoses, that's the potentiometer for the data logging. If we come up here a bit, we've got dry brake connectors on the brake line, so that if you need to change a master cylinder or calipers or repair crash damage in a hurry, it's a lot quicker to dry brake your connectors. Öhlins steering damper, billet master cylinder, Domino quick action throttle, because this bike's on Motec, and so you don't have the Honda kit throttle, you have a Domino, or sometimes a lot of the teams use a Ducati throttle, onto Spider clip-ons. Hawk have actually had these yokes made themselves. Honda Racing use like a solid top yoke that looks a lot like the road bike but isn't the same, but Hawk have had these ones done. The idea, again, like the fork bottoms, having all these sections machined out, it gives them a little bit of flex. So obviously in braking area the forces are going straight, so you have loads of stiffness in the braking areas, but when the bike's on the side at lean angle, there'll be just ever so slight little bit of flex in the bits of aluminium, so it saves a bit of weight and it gives the rider a bit of flex. So the bottom yoke as well, if you can see it down there, has actually got cutouts in the bottom yoke as well, again to add a little bit of flex, because the flex gives everything a bit of feel. Obviously Motec dash, carbon clock brackets and air scoops and all these sort of bits. And if we go around the other side, past the big number, right, Hawk are using a thumb brake that is also connected to the foot brake, so they actually have dual brake system for this. Apparently a complete pig to bleed up, because obviously you've got basically two master cylinders running one caliper, and the bit you want to bleed it out of at the caliper is at the bottom, so absolute pig to do. Brake span adjuster, so that adjusts the front brake span, and this is for actually getting the bike into neutral, because these are on a Nova gearbox. I think it's a Nova box on these, and neutral is underneath first, so that when you change first to second you don't have to go through neutral. It gives a better gear change, and so basically you pull that lever and there's a solenoid on the side of the gearbox that pulls out and allows the gearbox to go into neutral. So the bike won't go into neutral when you're riding it, it'll only do it at standstill if you pull that lever. Clutch lever is drilled out, so saves a bit of weight, stops the air pressure getting to it when it's going fast. And then we can move a bit further down the bike. So the engines, these come from Honda Racing to a certain spec built by Mugen, but there are quite a lot of bits on these bikes that Hawk have actually done themselves. And in fact, I'm going to show you one more thing at the front here. So we have an overflow bottle here, but underneath the overflow bottle is a little holder for it, made of carbon fibre, specifically designed and made by Hawk, or for Hawk. They are available from Hawk. If you want the trickiest piece of kit, which is a carbon fibre holder for your overflow bottle, contact Hawk and get your money out. Right, there's a shift support thing in here, and that basically stops the shift shaft trying to flex, so it gives a more positive gear change. A bit like the Honda layout, the Honda Racing bikes, all the starter motor and battery are buried behind the airbox on top of the engine. But unlike Honda in Louth, these Hawk have actually made their own wiring looms, so their wiring's a little bit different, and they've actually had somebody remake the fuel pipes for them to their spec, so that everything under here actually routes a little bit different. So that's a bit different. There is a Hawk made bracket to hold the transponder, so I actually really like where that's located. Nice and close to the floor, you're not going to miss the transponder signal, and it's quite well tucked out of the way, so I do like that. Right, Spider rear sets, branded Hawk Racing and Michael Dunlop Racing, so we like it when Spider do these little details like that. Right, rear shock. This is, I believe I'll get the numbers right, an RSP 40. So there's a 40mm twin tube Öhlins, not a through rod. These are £6,500 now, just for a rear shock. That's a lot of money. Obviously, potentiometer for the rear suspension to tell you how much travel it's using, and that's got its own little micro connector, so you can take the pot off there, and the other connector is for the rear brake pressure, and you can actually see the feeds into here. One of these is the feed out of the rear brake master cylinder, and one of them is a feed that comes via the front brake, like the thumb brake bit on it. So we've got all that. We've then got the billet Suter swinging arm. So basically, like the side plates for the swinging arm are machined from billet, and then the adjuster blocks are solid machined from aluminium. These normally, back originally, would have been pressed aluminium, but Suter have started doing them out of billet instead, because it's like gives you a slightly more control over the exact wall thickness, and of course then if you're doing it from sheet, all the sheets are the same thickness. With billet you can have some sections, like this section here might be thicker than this section here, depending on exactly where you want the swinging arm to flex. There's a lot of engineering goes into swinging arms, and a bit like all the machine bits at the front, it's so that in the drive plane, like forwards and backwards, the swinging arm's really stiff, but when it's on the side of the tyre, when it's at lean angle, they'll be flexed that way, and a little bit of twist so that the tyre can generate more grip. Right, moving on from that though, Renthal sprockets, big aluminium fuel tank, and it's another thing I like here is this subframe made by Carbonin is machined from billet. So you must start with a very big piece of billet, but if we look under here, you can actually see where there's whole sections machined out of it. Right, and then we get onto some of the bits I really like. Geeky bits, lock wiring. So there'll be loads of titanium drilled headed bolts, and the lock wiring is everywhere. So lock wiring holding the bracket on, then lock wiring to hold the exhaust to the hanger, lock wiring from here to the subframe bolts. Now these lugs, these, if you want, you can run a brace from this side to the other side of the frame and basically add a bit of extra stiffness across here. I've seen this on all the Hondas. I've only ever seen one with a brace on it. It wasn't on for very long. Right, as we're talking lock wiring, the lock wiring to the bolts that hold the paddle onto the thumb brake, that is a nice little detail, that is. And then obviously a span adjuster as well. So that's it. We are covering most of the bases. Right, back to the engine spec. They come from Mugen, but basically because it's modern Superbike rules, everything below the head gasket is standard. So rods, pistons, crank are standard. You can change the gearbox, you can change the clutch. So these ones have got Nova gearboxes in, not sure what slipper clutch they're using, but basically they're allowed, in effect, like super sport tuning in the heads. So flowed heads, different cams, different valve springs, that sort of stuff. And these bikes, nobody will give me an exact power figure, but go on the assumption around 240, maybe 245 horsepower, that sort of area. But nobody will give me an exact figure, and I can't really blame them. So that is it. Those are the details you need if you want to make a Honda Fireblade win a Superbike TT. And you'll also need somebody with that name. As well as winning the TT Superbike race, the day after recording this, Michael also went on to win the Armoy Race of Legends on it. Thanks to Hawk Racing for letting me get up close and personal.